Hello and welcome to the Redzone Rewind, where we talk everything and all things NFL. I'm Jake Schulz.
And I'm Mike Jose Collins, filling in for Zulfi Sheikh.
No Zulfi. He was actually got a NFL game. He got to see Derrick Henry rumble and return to form. Lots to talk about this week in the NFL. A couple upsets here and there. We always start with a season-ending injury, unfortunately. Tre'Davious White of the Buffalo Bills, once again, out for the season. This guy has awful luck.
Yeah, you just got to feel for him at this point. I mean, I think the team's going to be fine without him. They did okay last year, but, I mean, the guy, he hardly touched an NFL field, and that's just a brutal one to lose.
Horrible. So why don't we talk about the Bills, because they had a very nice win there against what a lot of people would say is one of the front runners in the NFL of the Miami Dolphins. Buffalo Bills 48-20, and I think that you have a pick for MVP, don't you?
Yeah, listen, I think people were really high on the Dolphins, and I expected that after the big 70 blowout win, but I was one of the people who was clearly saying, listen, the weakest unit in that game is going to be the Dolphins' defense, and Buffalo's offense, up to that point, was actually starting to click, and their defense looked pretty amazing. I know people said that, well, their defense faced a lot of not very good quarterbacks, but to me, I could still see the Buffalo Bills pulling out of that one, especially at home. Did I think it would be in such a blowout fashion? No, but I think once you basically dethrone the top team in the NFL, then your MVP chances are going to skyrocket from there, and that's why I think Josh Allen, at this point, probably is my MVP pick for favorite. He had 4 touchdowns passing and 1 rushing touchdown. He really found his target there, Stephon Diggs, for 3 TDs. I mean, this guy looks incredible, and as long as those two can click for the rest of the season, I think he really has a tremendous shot of making the MVP. I know he was people's favorites 2 years ago, and after the disappointment last season, he seemed to really fall off a cliff there on what people are expecting from him. But, I think the Bills are really poised, and right now they're also my AFC favorite. But I think Josh Allen, he's really got a solid case there.
I think the main takeaway for me is that he's not turning the ball over. And we talked about this on week 1 of this show, is that when he turns the ball over, that disastrous things happen to that Bills team. Twice this year, he's not turned the ball over. He has 4 picks on the year, but he's playing better at a better pace than someone like Jalen Hurts is.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because in week 1, we saw him trying to play that hero ball style of play that he really likes to play, where he just throws balls for the sake of throwing balls, trying to get a giant play, but it did not work for him in week 1, and what we found over the coming weeks is that he's still playing that game, but in a position where he needs to. In this game against the Dolphins, he's kind of had to play on the edge the whole game, and it really worked for him. So I'm still a little concerned about how dangerous that's going to be when it comes to playing teams that don't necessarily live up to the hype as the Dolphins. I know he did clear the Raiders and whatnot, so he does look okay, but it's still something, maybe to monitor for the rest of the year, but I really like the way he's playing.
I'm going to flip to a different team in the NFC, however, as my pick for MVP. And come on, it's Christian McCaffrey at this point. He is playing at an unbelievable pace. If this season was to continue, if he was to stay healthy the entire time, he is on pace for over 1,800 rushing yards, for over 550 receiving yards, and 28 total touchdowns. 28! This man had 4 touchdowns. Not 1, 2, 3, 4. Against the Cardinals. He's been looking terrific, and I don't think it's anyone's surprise that Christian McCaffrey is one of the best players in NFL history, but when he's healthy, and he has been healthy for over a year and a half now, I think if he continues on this trajectory, and Purdy loves him, rightfully so, he's got that MVP locked.
Yeah, I think it was something that really people overlooked coming into this season. Is he looked amazing last year when he came to the 49ers, but now that he's had a whole offseason and he really knows the playbook, he's looked even better. But my biggest concern for an MVP take for Christian McCaffrey is every time we see him have one of these explosive games, the next game he's injured and he doesn't come back for 2 or 3. And I think that could happen, especially in a big game against Dallas this weekend. Another thing is this award isn't necessarily an Offensive Player of the Year award. I think he's easily a lock for that right now, but the NFL loves to give this to quarterbacks. I personally disagree with that, but I think that might be one of the biggest things taking him away, and the injury concerns are still there.
Look, if Jefferson didn't get it last year, it's going to be hard for anyone else to get it, and I think that is an issue. The NFL doesn't like to award them to anyone but a quarterback. Just rename it the quarterback award then if you're going to keep doing that, because it's not the MVP of the league.
No, I 100% agree with you. Listen, if he keeps that pace, which is something I don't think he will be able to do, because I do see him getting injured this season, but if he doesn't, then yeah, I think that's a great call for MVP. His odds aren't even top 5 right now. It's all quarterbacks, something that is just the NFL's way to go, and I think that really needs to change. But I'm a big fan of CMC, and I really like to see what he does this weekend against a great Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah, why don't we flip the script a little bit here and talk about teams that we don't think are going to have any success and what teams should tank, because this is a good draft coming into this year. We got a ton of good quarterbacks, of course, Caleb Williams, the one that everyone is talking about this year, but also Marvin Harrison Jr. You got a lot of good pieces, and there's a lot of teams that are hovering around that 1-3, 0-4 record. They got the Patriots, the Jets, you got the Raiders, Broncos, Bengals. There's lots of teams out there. Who do you think should be tanking and starting to turn their look towards next year and the draft?
Listen, you can make a lot of cases for a lot of teams right now. I think the Bears are obviously, I don't even know if they're going to win another game this season, so they're already on the verge of tanking.
Not just that, 28-7.
I mean, it's a little brutal. But, yeah. I mean, at this point, we really have to look at teams that should tank, I think is more of the question, rather than teams that are probably going to be bad. Like, the Broncos did beat the Bears this weekend, but I don't see them being good for the rest of the season, so I think they're on that trajectory to tank. But a team who I think actually is a pretty decent team, but has the opportunity right now to make a complete pivot is the New England Patriots. We've seen a lot from Mac Jones this year, and a lot of mid, a lot of not very good. I think we know the limit to him. He can't make a big play when it matters. He's not very good. He doesn't have a lot of weapons. But I think if you add, a generational quarterback, I mean, we have 5 coming in this draft. Like 5 quarterbacks to go in the top 10 this year, and they all seem generational talents. I think the New England Patriots really have to pivot here. I know when the Pats had Mac Jones, when Mac Jones fell to them at around, 15?
15, yep.
Then, they thought they actually, wow, I can't believe this guy fell to us. They thought they had a diamond in the rough. His rookie season was pretty good, but ever since then, nothing's really come to fruition for Mac Jones. And I think that this season, the more we're seeing from him, the less we're really getting from him. So I think the New England Patriots are in a really fascinating spot because I don't see them doing well in this division either. Zach Wilson actually looked kind of decent, so the Jets might even finish above them. So, I'm all in on the Pats blowing it up. Go for it.
Yeah, my thing is the Patriots don't have an inch in their bone to blow it up because Bill Belichick will never do that. He's still searching his 300th win, and he still wants to pass Shula for the most ever. However, look, I've defended Mac Jones. We've talked about the Patriots a lot on this. I can't really defend his play when he's throwing across his body. That's just rookie stuff. You shouldn't be doing that anymore. And he's trying to do too much when he's not a quarterback to do too much. And there's nothing there. And now you have Matthew Judon, who's going on to IR. He is having surgery. And you have Christian Gonzalez, who is looking excellent. All of their cornerbacks are now out. Basically, Gonzalez is out for a while.
Yeah.
Why not tank? Clearly, Mac Jones is not that quarterback anymore. He cannot, like you were saying, he can't make a play. He can never put them in positions to win. Every single time they come down to the wire to win, they don't do it. He hasn't had a game-winning drive once in his entire career. I think they should. They're not going to, though.
No, and, I think it's a really interesting opportunity, and it really shows, what Belichick cares about at this point. Is it his overall career, or is it the sake of the team? Because I think right now, if you're a Pats fan, you want them to tank at this point.
Yep.
There's really no up to this season. There's no, I'd like to be in the middle, because you're not. I don't even necessarily you'll be in the middle. It's a tough out there.
Yeah, the schedule doesn't get any better. Still the hardest schedule in the league remaining. I'm going to stay in the AFC for a team that I think should tank, and for a different reason, and that's Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, they're 1-3. They have looked really pedestrian, and a lot of that comes down to one man, and that's Joe Burrow. And I'm not saying that in the same vein as something like Mac Jones. He's not healthy. It's so obvious that his calf has been bothering him because when you watch him play, he is sitting in the pocket and he cannot move outside of the pocket. And where does Joe Burrow get a lot of his explosive plays? When he shifts around the pocket, when he's moving around, making those types of plays. He can't do that. He's literally just standing there like a pylon. And he looks like Desmond Ridder. He's not healthy. And it's hurting this team. They barely scraped by the Rams. Shout out the Titans, Ryan Tannehill. Tremendous game from them. But I think the Bengals should throw Burrow on IR and just tank. You have nothing else to hurt. If you get a high draft pick, trade it and get offensive linemen or take an offensive lineman. This is not their season. They're 1-3. Very rarely do teams ever come back. I know that they were 0-2 and came back and made playoffs. It's not looking like it's going to happen as long as his ankle and his calf is hurting him.
Yeah, I think when you look at last year when they did go 0-2, they won every single game after then. So, I sort of agree with you because it is a tricky situation where Joe Burrow is clearly not healthy. Every time he goes out on the field, he is definitely the reason that the team is losing. He can't move. There's no movement. I do agree with you that they should put him on IR, but I think it's a really interesting situation because if you could get him back later in the year, and the Bengals are a pretty solid team, they might be able to make a playoff spot or a playoff push, as long as you have a generational quarterback like Joe Burrow. Even if he's coming back after an injury late in the season, he might be the difference maker when it comes to the playoffs. So I sort of agree with you, but I do feel like if they do go for the draft pick and they do end up tanking, what are you really going to move after? You don't need to draft anybody. I guess you could trade your pick to a sort of a lesser team, but all the lesser teams don't really have much to give you right now. So I think the Bengals, they may as well just keep going for it, put them on IR for now, but make that playoff push. I think they're pretty solid. I know their division is really tough right now, but I still sort of believe in the Bengals.
Say go for it, though, but their schedule coming up. The Cardinals, who are no pushover, they got the Seahawks and the Niners and the Bills and the Texans, Ravens, Steelers. Like, that's an ugly schedule. I'm not sure where those wins are going to even come in.
It's going to be tough, but, the Bengals, it's an interesting situation.
Do you want to shift to Sunday night, the biggest game? Let's go to the Niners and the Cowboys. The Cowboys had a nice win, 38-3, like we mentioned, against the New England Patriots, putting themselves back up there in top contention. The other team, 4-0, is the San Fran. What's going on Sunday? This is arguably the biggest game of the season. What do you think is going to happen this game? Who's solidifying themselves as that top dog?
Listen, I see this game as two all-time defenses. You could say the San Francisco 49ers are one of the best teams ever in the Super Bowl era. Like, this roster is truly phenomenal. But Brock Purdy is bad under pressure, and I think the Cowboys are going to pressure a lot. So it's going to be a lot of running games. I think it's going to be a Pollard, a CMC, if you want to take those overs. I know I have my betting segment on another video where I talk more in depth about this game. But right now, I really like the 49ers to win this game. I think this is going to be a lot closer than people think. I think people are still pretty down on the Cowboys after that Cardinals loss, but the Cowboys came back and they had a blowout victory. Both of these quarterbacks, I don't like. I am not completely sold on these guys. Dak Prescott is just, I think we've seen the ceiling, we've seen the peak of Dak Prescott, and it's fine. I don't think that's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and I think it's the same for Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy's undefeated in the regular season. Brock Purdy's phenomenal. Brock Purdy's undefeated in games that he's not injured in. So I don't necessarily like him, but I think the plan works in San Francisco, and I think they do squeak out a victory here. But I think it's a close game, but I think this is going to be all on the ground, all the running game.
Speaking of Dak Prescott, here's cadence change. Here we go. Yeah, that was the entire game. What was happening there? It's because they thought the Patriots were going to steal their signs, whatever. Here's my thing. Even with the Cowboys blowing out the Patriots, their offense still could not score red zone touchdowns.
It's a big question mark.
It's a massive issue, and this cannot continue the entire time. You cannot be contenders if you cannot score in the red zone. And what team is better than stopping touchdowns in the red zone than the San Francisco 49ers? I think I agree with you. I think the game will be close because it'll be a low-scoring game. I don't think this is going to be a shootout like a lot of people are expecting. I do have San Fran. I'm going to take them by 3 in this game. I think that's a good spread there. I'm going to have too many questions about this Cowboys team until they can show me they can score in the red zone because they just can't at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
We will see what happens Sunday night with that game. I want to thank you, Mike, for joining me today in covering for Zulfi. Hopefully Zulfi had some fun in Nashville. I'm sure he did. But that's going to wrap it up for the Redzone Rewind for Jake and Mike. We'll see you all in our other videos.